This call is now being recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miss Amorai. I will be the one to discuss about our topic for today, which is hazard analysis critical control point. Okay, if you happen to go to the grocery and purchase some food, you will see a certification or what we call the HACCP certification. So this is what we call hazard analysis critical control point. HACCP is a proactive approach in the food safety. So it means that it symbolizes food quality assurance to the customers. The ultimate objective of this system is to anticipate and prevent rather than through an end product inspecting and testing. HACCP system derived from two major development. First, this was associated with Edward Birming's theory of a total quality management system. It emphasized a total quality assurance approach to improve the quality and reducing the cost. And the second one was the development of HACCP concept by Pillsbury Company in the 1960s. Okay, for the United States or NASA, United States Aeronautics Space Administration. The HACCP system was intended a guaranteed safety for food for the astronauts while they are in travel in space. So NASA wanted a zero defect in terms of food safety. Okay. So yeah, in a food safety system or called the HACCP system, okay, there should be a prerequisite program. So meaning company or food manufacturing company has already been practicing this program. So first is they are already have a proper personal hygiene practices, and there is all again an existing policy about this hygiene practices. Second one, the company or a food manufacturing or maybe a restaurant has already been established a proper facility design practices. Third one, they should have a supplier selection or selected suppliers that can provide a quality ingredient. Then next, they already have a program in terms of cleaning and sanitation. They already have a program for equipment and maintenance. All right. So why use HACCP system? So what are the reasons? Why do we need or why do some companies need to adopt this system? So number one, so first case, the food industry has become extremely market driven. So meaning the demand is for fast and ready to eat. Okay, so there are many people nowadays that has already been purchasing ready to eat foods from these companies. Okay, because of convenience and maybe because there are some things that they really need. Example is nutritious foods. So this has been drastically increased over the past 20 to 30 years. So this the food industry becomes can produce or produce more products, produce them faster, produce them cheaper, and make them more convenient. So if these products or food products has not been handled properly, these products can become contaminated, and if not cooked properly, they can become unsafe. Okay, the second reason, okay, consumers are becoming more aware of the food safety concerns is because of the media reports and the technology that we have nowadays starting in the 21st century. Okay, any reports of the outbreak in terms of foodborne contamination, it brings them to their attention. Okay, third, the food industry has grown and will continue to grow in size and scale. Such growth is often accompanied by increased numbers of untrained workers and production schedules that limit the time and available for hazard prevention. And then next is there is a new and constant threat from new strains of pathogenic bacteria, and it becomes resistant forms of the unknown pathogen. So are the farm. um, according to the research, 80% of the farm animals today has already been exposed to antibiotics. So such these antibiotics can also contaminate the food, and we can acquire this antibiotic, and our body can be resistant to these antibiotics if this has not been practiced. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to discuss with you the 7 principles of hazard analysis critical control point. So first thing is number one is the conduct hazard analysis. Okay, for this principle, the application of this principle involves the listing the steps of the process in identifying where the significant hazards are likely to occur. The HACCP team will focus on the hazards that can be prevented, eliminated, or controlled. The HACCP plan. A justification for including and excluding the hazard is reported and possible control measures are identified. So for this principle, I'm going to explain to you. Okay, in each food service flow, so starting from maybe receiving and then storage, preparation, cooking, and then of course serving. Okay, in each phases or each stage of the food service flow, there will be a hazard that may contaminate the food. So there are three hazards. So we have the physical contaminant or physical hazard. So those are the foreign object that may contaminate the food. For example, hair or a nail. Okay. The other one is a chemical contaminants. For example, of the chemical contaminants are poisons or insecticides. Okay, that may also contaminate the food. And then the other one is biological contaminants. So meaning these are the pathogenic bacteria, viruses, and parasites. So for each, maybe there would have a possibility that these hazards may occur. So for example, in the preparation, thawing the food at room temperature may expose to temperature danger zone that may endanger the food. Okay? That this pathogenic microorganism or bacteria may thrive. Okay, another example is unsanitized cutting board in the preparation. Okay, so these are another examples of hazard analysis. Okay, so in receiving, there would be a possibility that the physical hazards such as wood or plant materials can contaminate the food. Okay, another example of chemical contaminant that may contaminate the food upon receiving is pesticides and fertilizers. So for the biological hazard, okay, um, it can be worms and insects that may contaminate the food. Okay, the second principle is determine critical control point. Okay, so critical control point is a step or procedures at which control can be applied and food safety hazards can be prevented, eliminated, and reduced to acceptable level. So that means that the hazard team will use the CCP or critical control point, okay, to identify this process. The critical control point may control more than one food safety hazard, or in some case, more than one CCP is needed. Control a single hazard. The number of CCPs needed to depend on the process steps and controlling needed to assure the food safety. So meaning in these steps, okay, you are going to determine and analyze what preventive measures or control point, okay, to control or preventive measures to control the hazard. So, for example, for fresh chicken, in the steps of receiving the chicken, okay, in order for you to establish a critical control point upon receiving the chicken, you should have set a critical control point or control point of receiving them below 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Okay, for fresh ground meat, if the fresh ground meat has been held, okay, at the temperature danger zone for 4 hours, you need to discard it. So those are the control points that you need to undergo in order for you to control the hazard. Okay, so for cooking fresh pork, okay, you need to set also a control point, so meaning you are going to cook pork to a minimum internal temperature of 140 degree Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. Okay, so now we go to principle 3, which is establish critical limit. So for this principle, okay, you are going to set a minimum value and a maximum value, okay, to which a biological, chemical, and physical parameter must be controlled at a CCP to prevent and eliminate or reduce the acceptable level of the occurrence of the food safety hazards. Okay, the critical limit usually a measure such as time, temperature, water activity, pH level, weight, or some other measures that is based on a scientific literature and a regulatory standard. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. So upon receiving your food item, for example, you will be receiving a poultry or a chicken. Okay, upon receiving, you are going to set a critical limit, which is 40 degree Fahrenheit for the temperature and below. So there should be a minimum, meaning below means 32 degree Fahrenheit, and then the maximum temperature is 40 degree Fahrenheit. So those are the range that you are going to set. Okay, for the storage, okay, you will set the storage temperature from 32 degree Fahrenheit to 40 degree Fahrenheit with a maximum of 2 days. So that is a maximum number of days that you will be storing your food product. Okay, so for the preparation, okay, meaning that you need to have a 45 degree Fahrenheit temperature of the preparation temperature, and then it should be prepared within 4 hours. Then after 4 hours, it should not go beyond 4 hours. Okay, so that is an example of principle number 3. Now we go to principle number 4, which is establish monitoring procedures. Okay, for this principle, the HACCP team will now be able to describe monitoring procedures for the measurement of the critical limit at each critical control point. So the monitoring procedure should describe how the measurement will be taken and when the measurement is taken, who is responsible for the measurement, and how frequently the measurement is taken during the production. So I'm going to give you an example. So this one, if you will be broiling or baking a chicken, okay, and then you set the critical limit from 165 degrees Fahrenheit to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it should be monitored very carefully if it meets the critical limit. So you need to monitor it. If this temperature will fall into this range. Okay, so next we have principle number 5, which is establish or identify corrective actions. Okay, so for this principle, corrective actions are the procedures that are followed when a deviation in a critical limit occurs. Okay, the HACCP team will identify the step that will be taken to prevent potentially hazardous food from entering the food chain, and then the steps that are needed to correct the process. This usually includes identification of the problem and steps taken to assure that the problem will not occur again. Okay, so these are the examples. Okay, cooking the food at a required minimum internal temperature is one corrective action. Okay, you continue to food. If there is a possibility that the critical limit that you set, okay, did not meet or was not able to meet, the corrective action should be you continue to cook the food, okay, until it reaches a minimum internal temperature. Okay, another example of corrective action is you throw away, okay, a food item that is specified or exceed a specified time of amount of time. So, for example, the gravy that you will be serving has been exposed to temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours or 5 hours. So you need to throw that away because that is not safe already. Okay. Another example is if you receive a shipment of poultry and then did not receive a correct temperature, or meaning it falls above, okay, the required temperatures, meaning you set the temperature for 40 degrees below, and then you receive that at 50 degree Fahrenheit, okay, you have the right to reject the shipment. So that those are examples of corrective actions. Okay, so for principle 6, verify that system works. So those activities, other than monitoring, that determine the validity of the HACCP plan and the system operating according to the plan, the HACCP team may identify activities such as auditing, the CCP, or record review, or maybe prior shipment review. Okay, instrument calibration and product testing as part of the verification activities. All right. So when you verify, you will be using tool, okay, to verify. For example, in verifying the critical limit, okay, you need to have a thermometer for you to determine the critical limit in terms of temperature. Okay. Another example is you need to have a policy, okay, in order for you, or a standard or standard operating procedures in order for you to determine if the employees are following the established procedures. Okay. And then principle 7, a record keeping. So establishing procedures for record keeping and documentation. So this is a key component of HACCP plan. Okay, is recording information that can be used to prove that the food was produced are safe or not. The records also needed to include information about HACCP plan. Record should include information of the HACCP team, the product description, the flow diagram, the hazard analysis, and the CCP identified, as well as the critical limit, the monitoring system, the corrective actions, the record keeping procedures, and the verification procedures. So those are the things that you need to keep for documentation. Okay? So HACCP does not stand alone. The application of HACCP does not mean that it is an isolated or in isolation in a food processing industry or a food processing facility. The plan must be built on another food safety program. Okay, a good manufacturing processes that are practiced by processing facility will support HACCP plan and will address food safety and food quality issues that are not critical for the reduction of the food safety hazards. Sanitation standard operating procedures are required also in the federal inspection of meat and poultry in terms of operations and should address the procedures for clean facilities, equipment, and personnel that are necessary for all the product process in a facility. All right. So if you happen to, again, okay, encounter this logo, okay, so what does it mean? Okay, so it means that the food that you are eating has undergone a strict compliance and strict observance of the food safety, safe food safety protocols. But it doesn't mean that once you purchase a food with a HACCP certification, okay, it will not guarantee that the food is already safe. Okay, is in your hand to practice food safety programs such as hand washing or proper hand washing, a proper sanitation, as well as a good personal hygiene. So that is part of your responsibility also to provide a good quality as well as foods, safe food to your family or to the customers. Okay, so that's it for today. So that's comprised of our topic, hazard analysis critical control point. If you have any questions, you may email me or maybe you can address to me through a chat room or a canvas. So if you have inquiry about any clarification about this topic, okay, I am very open and I have my time for you to answer your questions. And for that, thank you so much for your participation. And that ends my presentation. Okay, thank you and good afternoon.